Welcome to Divisive Issues, a spoiler-filled, foul-mouthed comic book podcast where we talk about comic books, or sometimes manga. I'm Ryan.
I'm Sly.
I'm Phil.
And I'm Darryl.
What is this?
Wait, we made it.
You have to say it every episode, Ryan. It's not a contract.
We made it, comma, what is happening?
We made it to this issue of this weird bullshit, but
So we're doing another listener request. This is from David.
Yeah, thanks,
And
David.
yeah,
it's-
aka Zach Vig. We mentioned him a few times before.
Yeah, it's awesome.
This is probably my favorite thing we've ever read.
Really?
Really?
So what is it?
It's the Legend of Koizumi. What is that, you might ask?
By Hideki Owada, right?
It's a manga about Mahjong.
What the fuck is Mahjong? Because I read the manga and I still have no idea.
I don't know.
Okay.
Mahjong's an ancient Chinese game that's played with tiles on a board. And it's sort of like, I've heard that it's like rummy. There's three different...
What is rummy?
It's a card game. There's
Okay.
three different suits, or main suits. There's like bamboos, characters, and dots, and they each go from 1 to 9. And then there's also dragon tiles and wind tiles. And basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to make sets of them. Like three
Like
of
a hand.
Yeah, 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind, or a 1, 2, 3, like a ascending order set.
So what does this fucking game have to do with Putin, Hitler, and Pope Benedict?
That's a question we will never be able to answer.
What do you mean? They're all the best Mahjong players of the world.
Yeah, if you go to the Wikipedia page right now, you'll see in the trivia notes.
It's funny because the manga starts with there's this doofus character in the comic that basically does nothing, but it starts with him trying to teach George Bush Jr. how to play, and then George Bush.
Before this starts,
the secret is that he actually knows how to play, and then the prime minister has to run in and rescue him from playing a game against him, and then they start betting like F-15 fighter jets.
Huh.
So in this game, in the manga, it seems more like the player has a certain amount of HP, and the better the guy does, like they take damage.
Yeah, it's
and then if
basically
they lose,
whatever
they
points, because Mahjong can be scored, so it's whatever points they're getting from their winning tile hands.
Well, they treat it like
does
Yu-Gi-Oh, where
damage.
they have their life points, and whenever they get hit, they scream and act like ah, and then you go.
Yeah, like electricity
And-
actually hits them, and they die if it gets to 0.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. That's the most important part. If you run out of points in Mahjong, you fucking die.
If you die in Mahjong, you die in real life.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. But I can't
So,
tell. Is this like everyone who plays Mahjong dies when they're playing? Or
No,
is it like if you're...
I think it's just specifically because of the rules of this game. It's done by Nazis.
Yeah, there's a version that the people, the Benedict and Hitler are accustomed to.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, if you're interested in it, the elevator pitch for the book is Nazis challenge the G8 to a game of Mahjong.
What are
and
the
whoever-
G8? The Gang of Eight? What is the G8?
Yeah, they're like the leaders of the Western.
Yeah,
world.
prime
They're
ministers
like-
of Canada, Italy, France, Germany, and then president of the United
US.
States.
And this was written in like the 2000s, so it's George Bush
And
and
Sarkozy's in France.
And it
Macron's in
used to
Canada.
be the G8 because Russia was in it, but since this has been written, Russia's been kicked out. It's the G7.
I'd love if this manga was still going on. That the twist is that Putin's the true final enemy.
Yeah.
yeah.
So basically, they have to defeat the Nazis in this game of Mahjong, and the winner can determine the fate of the Earth.
Yeah.
And it's like, how are Nazis still around? Well, you're about to find out.
Yeah. So we ready to jump into this?
So yeah, we're reading chapters 11 through 29 of Legend of Koizumi.
All right. So it opens up. Issue 11 opens up with a nuclear explosion, and the G8 show up. Stephen Harper, Candace, and a bunch of other people. I don't want to say all names. And also at the meeting, a Nazi soldier's there. Otto Skorzeny, the guy who rescued Mussolini. And it turns out there's a Nazi base, the Fourth Reich, on the moon that is launching nukes against the world.
It has like a moon cannon that can like
Yeah.
shoot like an artillery from the moon, and you can't defend against it because it's on the fucking moon.
It's basically episode 7 of Star Wars.
But Hitler, so it's like that's no moon, that's a fucking Nazi.
That's a Nazi.
It's just so
No.
great. The picture of this, I that's the thing is like saying it is one thing, but seeing these astronauts with the swastika on their arm going Sieg Heil with this giant moon cannon is just. It's something that you have to see.
Something
to believe.
special.
We should also briefly talk about the art because it's really I don't know. Like I feel it's really consistent, but maybe that's part of his charm. But like George Bush is drawn like a caricature, like he looks like half like a monkey man.
Yeah.
Putin he looks like a generic fucking manga guy.
And a lot of people have really weird anime looks, like Timoshenko of Ukraine is like a young lolly girl.
Yeah.
But then some characters look like fucking like the photos were copy and pasted, like Angela Merkel and like Colin Powell,
Angela.
Whatever.
Sly.
Fuck you.
Piece of shit.
But yeah, it's a very everyone looks different. The art style looks different depending on who it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Hitler's like, I can kill you all, but I'm gonna give you a chance. 5 Mahjong players will decide if lives or dies, and that ends the issue.
So that's our setup.
Yeah. Issue 12 opens with the best joke of the entire story arc, in my opinion. It's flashback to JFK saying we'll go to the moon, and meanwhile it's a young George W. Bush and an adult George H.W. Bush, who's called Papa Bush in the story, and he's looking at JFK saying a speech like, "No, Mr. President, on the moon, there's a trap," and because the Nazis on the moon, and I found that really funny.
Yeah, and then when the Americans get to the moon in 1969, they're like, "There's already a swastika flag."
And I love that they're like, the Apollo program was never used again. It's like, as if you get to the moon, there's a Nazi flag, and they're like, "Oh no."
Yeah, because the Nazis are there. They claimed it.
Yeah. So they sent to the best Mahjong players for South American clip to face the hooded experts of the Fourth Reich, which they're all they look at fucking literal Yu-Gi-Oh villains wearing the fucking robes and everything.
I had to say, like, I do this comic made me think a lot about how like the Nazis as a fiction device have become.
They were really good Mahjong players.
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking. They've become like the ultimate not scapegoat, but the ultimate place for all humanity and post-war to use like as the ultimate villain of all time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're so easy to make evil because they did a lot of evil and strange and occult things.
Even like he's like the ultimate despot of the 20th century, but it's like, you have to ignore like Pol Pot, like, more people died in communist China than almost all of World War II
And Russia
combined.
afterwards.
And Russia and like
That might be the reason why like I'm kind of like over the Nazi as villains shit. Maybe part of it feels like, because even in the story they show how badass the Nazis are. Half of it is kind of like.
At the same time, isn't it important to keep them super villainized as people nowadays fucking like?
No, but my problem
sympathize with them.
My problem with it, I think, is like when we've talked about other comics, is like when you make them so cartoonishly evil, you pretend like no one could ever be like that again. When really a lot of like the Yugoslav wars had ethnic cleansing in the 90s. Like
they were very exceptional. Like they're a recurring pattern in history. The fucking the brutal regimes that murder millions of people.
Yeah, and to be like it's always the Nazis. I mean, they are fun to hate,
but also
like,
it's kind of like a weird like glorification, because they do make the Nazis, except for Rom, which I forgot the
Rommel at the end.
One of them are shown as cool, honorable people, like in the story, and they're all drawn like.
No, they cheat the whole time.
Yeah, I think only Rommel.
The other
it's not shown like as they're cheap, but like there's a charm to their cheating. Like they're shown like even the one guy that cheats is shown as like a charmish rogue type, like.
But it's anime.
Yeah, and there's also people that are part of the Western Alliance that cheat too.
And also, they have like sexy Nazi girls too. Like the whole thing just rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, I understand that, but it is an anime, so like.
I know you're not supposed to take it so seriously, but like it's done so much in our culture in general. Like, and people do, and this. Some people do like get turned on by sexy Nazi imagery, and that leads to. And I know it sounds funny, like I'm saying it, but that leads to them becoming actual Nazis, like literally, like.
Yeah, that's true.
Like people, they fetishize the Nazi uniforms, and that leads them to fetishizing actual Nazis.
The question is, if Mecha Hitler is okay, as we've seen in many works of fiction, like would Mecha Pol Pot be okay killing Cambodians? Like,
see, that's rubs me wrong. That's why it rubs me the wrong way, because then it becomes obviously wrong if it's like Pol Pot or something. Less. No,
I feel the same way. I do. They do feel like, to me, like you can pretend humans are good except for the Nazis, like. Always, like, and then you have them be like these outrageous villains,
and also like they're always shown as like super competent, super. They, like I said, so it's a hidden subtle glorification because they're shown as like the ultimate classy, smart.
I feel like part of that's just the storytelling issue of where if you want to make the Nazis seem super evil and intimidating, like if they're just a bunch of bumbling idiots, you're not going to fear them.
I know, but that's why I'm like.
And they were a successful
They were, but
they were successful.
people underestimate the imagery is like they're like now we're talking about fucking Nazi. Sorry, it's my fault. But like people mentalize how efficient they were. There's it talks about how the SS was completely disorganized, and part of the reasons why people were ratted out so easily was because of citizen ratting each other out.
Right.
Like people overestimate how much they're like this. Oh, it's all-willed machine, where a lot of it was over dramatized. They weren't that well oiled.
Oh yeah, of course.
The real question, though, how good were they at Mahjong?
Yeah, that's what we should be answering, which is very good. Boom.
Alright, so moving away from my fucking moral qualms with this fucking story about fucking Nazis fighting.
It's like when we did the Dracula episode, and we're like, let's talk about goofy Dracula stories, and Phil was like, actually...
This is about European theories and
xenophobia.
Yeah. But
well, it's a valid point, because like every time you play, like Wolfenstein games, like it is about like crazy, powerful Nazis, and there is something to that, Like, it's not just it's not a coincidence that everyone is always talking about secret Nazis.
And you can't underestimate the fact that culture has on our
fetishes.
Stories have on our culture.
Yeah.
And so getting back to the fucking story about these fucking.
So they go to South America, and they have the hooded experts of the Fourth Reich.
Also
are
great
ready
because
to
so
play
many
Mahjong.
Nazis fled to South America. I liked the.
Oh, I didn't think about
There's
that.
actually a lot of like
history thing.
Yeah, this guy knows
history
history.
This guy did
I
his
liked it a lot.
research.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he really did.
Oh, but so the first guy to fight is Richard Wagner, the fucking composer.
Yeah.
And
Don't you mean Wagner, Americanized Sly?
Wagner? Oh yeah, so Richard Wagner. He
Who Hitler was actually a pretty big fan of.
Yeah, actually, I remember that. From the
Yeah.
class. But so the Nazis mastered magic, and they resurrected Richard Wagner. And so the first matchup is Putin versus Wagner.
And they each get assistants, and it's Putin and Medvedev.
Which
And
is great if
don't
you
know who
listen
the-
to our last Russia episode.
Oh, Noobside Talk
Yeah.
Politics.
Yeah, if you want to know about who Medvedev is, you should listen to the most recent Oops, I Talk Politics episode.
But basically, he like him and Putin are like the tag team duo of Russia. Like they keep making each other prime minister and president respectively.
Yeah.
And so Putin starts losing, and he gets electrocuted.
It's
and
worth
there was,
pointing out that in true anime fashion, every time they complete a set in Mahjong, their attack is like named like every anime. We talked about Keijo. They had like the vacuum butt cannon. Like it's always themed towards them. So Wagner is like Ride of the Valkyries is his move, and then you see Putin getting electrocuted, and they do that throughout this whole thing. And as much as I've seen it in a million anime, I just love it. I love named attacks. It's so good.
If it wasn't for that, because my biggest fault of the story is the fact that it's Mahjong and that's something more interesting. The attacks at the end do redeem it sometimes. I do wish the entire fight was just the
No, but that's what makes it cool. They're playing Mahjong, but they're using the hammer of the gods to smash each other.
Yeah,
with
but
their
the actual game isn't that like visually interesting.
But if you knew it, maybe it would be more interesting.
Yeah, but
true.
like it's still I don't think it'll be like I compare it to Yu-Gi-Oh. I read the actual Yu-Gi-Oh manga because I'm a fucking
Loser.
Yeah. But I actually find the Yu-Gi-Oh manga I like way more than the anime because the actual like Yu-Gi-Oh, the original premise of Yu-Gi-Oh for most people don't notice. Like people now just think, oh, it's just a card game, but the card game came later. Originally, it was about a fucking dork who gets bullied all the time, who gets magical powers, and he basically challenges all his bullies to games of death, and he always wins because he's the king of games. So basically, he bullies these dumb fucking jocks into killing themselves.
Oh, so you wrote it.
Yeah, so and that's why I love it because it's fucking nerd fantasy to its ultimate extreme, and it got subverted by this fucking card game marketing tie-in. But the thing that made Yu-Gi-Oh interesting was Yu-Gi-Oh is a visually interesting game. Like it's fucking they summon monsters and you have cast spells and stuff like that. While Mahjong is just these fucking
tiles.
It's like dominoes.
But that's what I love about it is that it's how do you make a little simple small set of tiles like really epic, and the way he draws them every time is always like they look so impactful and forceful, even though it's the same tiles every single time.
But it fits in with the theme of their attacks a lot of the time too, where like these tiles are booby trapped, or these tiles are like they're building a wall like Stalingrad or whatever. It's like
I will say if you want to see Mahjong done to as best it possibly can, probably read this manga. But
Yeah.
I do. I think of this as like this is what I compare. I can't help but compare it to Kaijo, which is another parody of manga tropes, and that one it made the form. I guess because just fighting is more interesting to me than even if it's buff fighting is more interesting to me than
especially if it's butt fighting.
Yeah, buff fighting. Yeah, but anyway, so
So Putin gets super electrocuted.
Yeah.
And everyone thinks he's out, but then he requests a backup suit and tea for Medvedev.
Yeah, and so the Ukrainian prime minister says, "You don't understand Putin. That guy is super cool enough to make others hate him." And as Putin drinks a tea and is good enough for round 2.
Little do they know that Ukraine will be invaded by Putin in like 5 years.
So Medvedev, he's Putin's co-partner. They have like these co-partners. I guess this game is tag team.
Mahjong's always played with 4 players, so you always need 4 players on the board. So it's 2v2, 2 Nazis versus.
So it's
3.
fucking tag team, fucking Yu-Gi-Oh. Okay.
Yeah. Except here, the assistants are allowed to lose, but the main person cannot lose.
Right. It's 1v1, except like in rule set or whatever. They say like it's still the 2 main players and the assistant, like Darryl said, can die, but they don't lose the game for them.
Yeah, so Medvedev, just like real Medvedev probably would do, sacrifice himself for Putin, saying, "As a first-rate puppet, I will gladly give my life to save the leaders. When I act as Putin's shield, I am protecting the future." And they have like imagery of like fucking kids and
I love that. It's like, I'm doing this for Russia, and all the children of Russia are like, protect us.
And so Wagner's puppet kills Medvedev and almost kills Putin, and Wagner's like, "No, the final blow will be mine." And Russia wins from behind and says,
They talk a lot about Wagner's like his hubris is like legendary and all these things, and then Putin just beats him.
And so Putin says, "This is how it's always been. Climbing over the bodies of our dead comrades and building the country on the permafrost. Compared to what the Nazis give us at Stalingrad, you are absolutely nothing." And this is my favorite.
Awesome.
My favorite combat moment of this whole entire manga is when Putin is doing the Putin fight, because Putin, he lines up all his mahjong.
You're a communist.
Yeah, of course, and he turns out to be a trap, because he seems like he's losing the entire time, but it's a trap, and he creates the Siberian Express, and it's a train that runs over Wagner, and I'm like, that's pretty cool.
It's made out of all dot tiles, so it looks like wheels.
It's so good. I really love that, and I love too how like the idea that like this is how it always is. Germany is invading, we're losing, but then we come from behind and we never give up. It's good.
It's awesome.
So next one is Joseph Mengele versus Yulia Tymoshenko of Ukraine.
Yeah, so these two sit down to play the game, and as they're starting to play, Yulia picks up a piece, and spikes come out of it, and it.
If you don't know who Mengele is,
You
he
should.
you should, but he was the big doctor that experimented on everybody.
Hey, Joseph Mengele is the only one out of all Nazis that he's shown to be a complete piece of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's really shown like a horrible guy.
And again, Yulia Tymoshenko, who was like 50 or something when she became prime minister, is like this. She's like this stereotypical like anime like sassy girl.
Yeah.
Well, she's like the part crazy, where she's like, she looks and acts cute, but she does crazy things. Like she.
Oh yeah.
The beginning has her grabbing the balls of the prime minister of Kazakhstan, I think.
What happens is she wins a Mahjong game against the leader of Kazakhstan,
Nazarbayev.
and he's like, "Oh, very nice, I like." Borat joke in 2017.
Fun fact: I taught a Nazarbayev, like that president's nephew.
Oh, really? That's cool. So what happens is the Kazakhstan leader loses, and he's like, "Oh, now you give me all your oil." The leader of Ukraine says, and he's like, "Oh, we can't." And then she like kicks him in the balls, saying, "You give me your oil, you give me your balls," basically.
So, as she's playing against Mengele, like the needles come out of the tile pieces, and they find out it's an S-mine tile used to great effect in World War II by the Germans, referencing the bouncing betties they use on the battlefield. And that's part of like what I kind of like about this is how much that it does tie in history. It's not just like, here's these world leaders playing this crazy stuff. It's like, it's trying to specifically use tactics and events that happened to influence the Mahjong game. I don't know if that's really cool or really insensitive.
No, I think it's cool because it's like it gives you flavor on something that is generally like Mahjong would be flavorless without that.
Yeah.
I mean, I get what you mean. That
there's a thing later which I was like, this is a little too much, but I do like that they are using like these tactics. Like Mengele is trying to get a set of tiles, but he doesn't have the right one, so he takes a scalpel and he just cuts a tile to reveal like its other character on it.
Yeah, and when she got speared with that tile, she was injected with a nerve gas, which is a pretty Mengele thing to do.
Yeah.
Yep. So then she decides, cool, stern, girlish Yulia borrows the scalpel for a little bit, then just slices her own artery in her throat to get out all of the toxin from her blood.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Yep. And Putin's like, this is normal. Like in the after the Soviet Union collapsed, this stuff happened all the time.
And this also reminds me of early Yu-Gi-Oh! When they would wager their fingers getting cut off if they lost the game and stuff like that.
So then she heals up her neck and they continue playing the game. And Mengele's assistant has been like, she's undergone a lot of reconstructive surgery, so she can hear the wind hitting the tiles, and she knows what tiles every opponent has, and like her quick, deft fingers allows her to switch up tiles as they're playing. And
I couldn't tell from this whole comic series, is Mahjong turn-based or no?
yeah, Mahjong
Yeah,
is turn-based.
Oh, because they're always like fighting with each other over tiles.
And people are like grabbing tiles out of nowhere, saying, "When do you grab that tile? If it's turn-based, how is that happening?"
It's because they're playing so fast.
Oh,
I
They're
assume.
the best in the world.
Yeah,
But you still like are the.
but they might not wait. They might just be like speed rounding it, because it's like Dragon
It's
Ball
like
Z.
Final Fantasy where they have sometimes you have the CTP instead of the turn-based.
So then Yulia gets out a set of special uranium tiles to play
Yeah,
with.
depleted
Depleted
uranium
uranium.
Mahjong.
Yeah.
Because they're too heavy for the wind to work on.
So as they're continuing to play, it looks like Mengele keeps getting the upper hand, and he's trying to get like a set of all Chinese character tiles, I think, which is like,
He wants a perfect set because he's a Nazi.
yeah, which I really liked is that he's so like he says impurities must be purged. This is beautiful. This victory is for eugenics. As he's putting together all the tiles he specifically wants. But little did he know that Yulia planned for it, and all of those tiles were actually plutonium. And so as he's putting them together, because they come into contact with each other, they create a nuclear fission reaction, and they blow him up.
Yeah.
And Yulia goes, "Isn't Chernobyl a beautiful thing?"
Yeah, and the comic goes into like a crazy amount of detail about why this was able to happen.
Yeah, they're like, he's like, I have to explain this. Like, the moisture in the human body can act as like
a neutron reflector.
Don't they explain like what the secret behind Chernobyl at this point? Or something like
Yeah.
that?
Oh yeah, Chernobyl. Yeah.
Like it was actually planned out and stuff like that. Or something.
Yeah.
Shit like that.
So the nuclear meltdown at Chernobyl was planned out to create these amazing Mahjong pieces.
Yeah, so then it just gets crazy, and Mengele's like, he's not dead yet, but he's dying, and he'll give Yulia the secret to life if she lets him live. And she's like, oh, that sounds like a good deal. And then she promises him life, so he opens his head up and his brain's in a jar with little like eyeballs and tentacle legs, and he crawls onto the Mahjong table, and then she just smashes it. And he was like, how could you deceive, how could you lie and break your promise to me? But it's like,
Well, he wanted to put his brain in the like sexy Nazi assistant's body because she was a clone of him,
Yeah.
designed to take his consciousness.
Yeah, sure. I'll also explain like the entire fight. Not only do you have this fucking dorky guy, there's a guy who just basically points out all the rules to Bush. But in the actual story of this, all he does is basically announce rules are happening, make faces like, "Oh my god, he did this crazy turn."
Yeah,
And
I don't know why this guy was a character.
Yeah, me neither. But
I think he's supposed to act as sort of like the
Audience surrogate.
whatever the character, the character in the anime is. They're like, I thought this was supposed to do this, and then someone smarter explains to him, no, don't you see?
But they usually have an actual character to do that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And on top of that, they also have sexy Nazi girls. And whenever the wind blows, they do upskirt shots of them.
Yeah.
Which I do
Oh,
not
and their
appreciate.
names are Tristan and Isolde, which was one of Wagner's operas.
Oh, I didn't know that. I was like, oh, they're referencing the fucking story of Tristan and Isolde.
This is
Why?
deep. We just keep getting deep.
Yeah, as I was reading this, I'm like, there is a lot of references throughout this whole thing.
So did you write the story? Because it seems like you love your board games, you love history, you love fucking...
Yeah.
I just didn't. I don't know how Mahjong.
Yeah, you
works,
have to
though,
start
but-
learning Mahjong to learn this manga.
Yeah.
So now round 3. Now it's best out of 4. So if the Westerners can, I guess.
It's actually best out of 5. It's actually best out of 5.
Oh, was it best out of 5?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if the Americans, because now it's the Americans' turn, can win this round, they'll defeat the Nazis.
Yeah, go America!
Yeah. So
How
now
can we
it's-
lose? We won World War II.
So they introduce our military man, Papa Bush, George H.W. Bush, and his assistant, the bumbling Baby Bush. And it's versus
I love this. Too.
and it's versus Skorzeny, the Nazi from the very beginning, and the ace pilot, the greatest Nazi pilot ever made, Hans Rudel.
I need to bring up that before the game begins, Papa Bush goes over to the depleted uranium table Mahjong, and he says, "This is in my way," and the force of his uppercut, the wind, lifts the uranium pieces and flies them into the air. Because it shows you it's like that since they're military people, they have such brute strength, no one can compare to them.
Was George H.W. Bush viewed as this like pillar of strength?
I like that's one problem I have with the story. Like, not all the characters feel like they're reflecting their people at all.
especially H.W.
H.W. Bush was like, they just ran the premise of George W. Bush being a failure, and they imagine George H.W. Bush being as a pillar of man.
Yeah.
Or just they wanted to have the disappointed father story, and also Japan might see them that way more.
Yeah, that they're
than we
these
did here.
strong, like brutish kind of Neanderthals.
Like if they see America as the military strength.
But I was actually thinking about that. Like, I debated this really hard. Like this, I do have some problems with the story. Like, and one of them was like, if it is supposed to be like they're treating America seriously because it's Japan, then why is Bush such a bumbling idiot joke?
Because he is.
But everyone else is shown as like a.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And like, if anything, he should have been. If he's gonna be tough, he should be like because he was the head of the CIA, right?
Bush.
H.W.
Oh,
Bush?
H.W.
Wait,
Bush
I think so.
He was the director of the CIA, I think.
Okay, so anyway, so it opens with the pilot, Hans Rubel, uses like all the tiles to form a giant plane, and he uses a nosedive, and he almost kills Baby Bush right away. And basically, George W. the whole time is like super weak, and he's like crying, and he's like, "You should have brought Jeb, the smarter brother."
Little did they
love
know the truth about Jeb.
And Papa Bush goes, "You've never disappointed me, son." And George W. is like, "Really, Dad?" And he's like, "I've never had any expectations of you to begin with." And he's using Baby Bush to just soak damage. And the narrator's like, "Oh, Papa Bush always wanted to fight alone. He just used Baby Bush to absorb all these hits."
Yeah, when they do that, it's shown like Papa Bush in the shirtless Rambo with the belt of ammunition across his and the steer skull belt. It's good.
And Baby Bush is like, "What do you need me to do, Dad?" And Papa's like, just sit back. I'll take care of everything." And it flashbacks to him in college fighting jocks in Yale. And he's
I was like not 100% sold in the story, but this is when it started winning me over.
I found this so great.
It's Bush, but he's like a fucking stereotypical Japanese bully, like fucking.
Like the Japanese punks with the like weird
Huge
hairstyles,
pompadour.
weird long jackets.
Yeah.
But he still has older Bush's face, basically. It looks fucking hilarious.
Yeah, and he's like, and his friends are like, "Why are you gonna fight these jocks?" And he's like, "Strike first and win, the Bush family doctrine," that is such a good joke.
Preemptive war.
They do a lot of jokes like that. Like if I Bush fucked up around saying, "Oh no, if I could stayed the course, I would have won." Shit. And so like that.
Yeah.
And then Baby Bush ends up in jail, and Papa has to bail him out, and he's like, "I'll take care of everything, son." And then Baby Bush convinces his dad to just cut his losses in the present day and dismiss him. And they're like, "That's so callous that he would just cut his losses to win." And Bush is like, "That's the American way." But unexpectedly, Papa Bush sacrifices himself to save George W. And he says, "You may be useless, but I always loved you, son."
And he gets like the like mahjong tiles, like
They form
like,
a plus, but it looks like a cross.
into
Yeah.
his body, like slams through him and kills him. And then there's like this long cutscene. I play too many video games. This long flashback of
It's so great.
of George W. Bush saying, "Don't you remember your promise? We went to a ball game and it's like, take me out to the ball game is being sung." And he's like, "You brought me there and you showed me the American way or something."
And they mention they're like, "You were always supposed to take me to another one." And someone else is like, "He bought a whole baseball team to honor his progress, to his promise." And then Bush he's saying like, even when you were president, you always made time for us, for me and all my sisters and Jeb. You were always such a good dad. And this loving reminiscing makes Baby Bush reach his final form, and his power levels go over 8,000 Mahjong units.
Yeah.
And then Colin Powell shows up, and he delivers the Spirit of Yale, which is like a coat that comes from Yale that was Bush's grandfather's and then his dad's. And when he puts it on, he becomes the true Papa Bush. And
So we should clarify, when you said when Ryan was saying Mahjong units, he wasn't making a joke. They actually have the fucking scanners from Dragon Ball Z, and it's like, oh my god, his power level's over 9,000 basically.
Yeah, really. They do that.
And Colin Powell sits to be Baby Bush's assistant, and he's like, I'm just gonna be here. And he like looks at the camera and he's like, Colin Powell's fate will be forever tied with the Bush family. And Bush does this whole thing where he's like, I am the land and the sea. I am America.
I am the Marine Corps. I am the people. I am Frito. It's like, it's so over the top in a great way.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And his moves are like 3 strikes and you're out and D-Day.
Now, one thing
That's something I wish, like if you read this, a big sell is really all the different names. Like, we're not going to list them all as we go through it, but like every move name is like great.
And
and
one thing
the splash pages too, the art on them.
Yeah.
I do wonder how much of this stuff is from the translator or from the original text, because we did read a fan translation of it. So
That's true.
So if it was like, you know, a Westerner translating
Well,
it,
there's an anime I know of this.
yeah.
What?
Yeah, so
I'm watching.
Well, I just want to point that out. If someone's read the original Japanese, it might not be as like on point with the references.
But you know, the pictures you see with them.
no, it's still really on point. Don't get me wrong.
these Japanese and just read this manga, they'll find out that there's the fans are gonna be some loose translations here.
No, but you know what I mean.
Haiku.
Like.
Okay.
So the Nazi is, now that it's like the final fight between him and the true Papa Bush, he's like, I'm gonna cheat. And then Colin Powell's like, even if he what does he say? He's like, this is psychological warfare. He says he's gonna cheat, and then he might not, and while we're worried about him cheating, he's gonna strike. So we planned ahead. So the Americans have snipers and supercomputers turned on him that if they catch him cheating, they will instantly gun him down.
I love how like weird these rules are with Mahjong. Like, you could just kill all the Nazis right now, but they're like, if you cheat, we kill you. But otherwise you can kill our, like how they killed H.W. Bush, and they're like, well, that's part of the game.
Because if they just kill the Nazis, then Hitler would just launch the fucking missile. So
Yeah.
It has to be fair.
But
Hitler wants
even
a
the
fair
Nazis
battle.
are like okay with it. They're like, well,
But they
they'll
cheat.
be like, he cheated. So if you cheat in Mahjong, you deserve to die.
So he does cheat, but they can't figure out how. They're like, none of our video cameras caught it. And so
He's like, the technology of America is not enough.
yeah, he's like, I think he says we can't win we lost a war just and even though we had superior technology, it's a little on the nose. But so then during this cheating thing, Colin Powell gets killed and taken out. And then, but Baby Bush, the true Papa Bush, catches him cheating after he gets an inspirational talk from his Force Ghost dad that's like, don't think, just feel. And he reaches in and grabs him, and he apparently had this like fake table that was doing all these cheating things.
He was spinning the tile. The Nazi guy was spinning the tiles so fast as he grabbed them or something.
Yeah.
And so when Baby Bush, now Papa Bush, reaches out and grabs it mid-spin, it's like it's not even detectable to the human eye, but he was able to like feel it.
Yeah, and with his like new Papa Bush senses, he's able to see the switch happening.
So then they're like, you're about to lose. Do you have any last words? And the Nazi says, eat shit and die.
And then the snipers like shoot the shit out of him.
But he has 30 seconds until the life leaves.
He's like, you
his
didn't hit
body."
my heart, so I can still do one last move.
Yeah. So he enters into one final nosedive and wins the fight as he dies. So the Nazis have one victory. So
And
two
everyone
gone.
dies except for the fucking pilot guy.
yeah, so the Nazis win this one. So now it's 2 to the free world and 1 to the Nazis.
It's revealed later that Baby Bush actually survived, but only because the Yale jacket absorbed the electricity.
And here's another me taking it too seriously. It's weird showing Colin Powell's death on fucking manga.
I think this is, even though this happens later, it's also revealed that Papa Bush is up in heaven, and this guy shows up that looks just like God, and they're like, "Oh, that's Grand Papa Bush."
Yeah.
And he's like, "We can only watch your son now from heaven."
Man, Bush really was I knew Bush was a disappointment compared to his father. I didn't know he was that big a disappointment.
So now
that
the
Bush is
final,
out-
the final match.
Yep.
Who is it?
We get, in true anime fashion, Pope Benedict show up. The last pope before Francis. If you remember, he was German. What was his name? Ratzinger.
Yeah.
And in true anime fashion, he's like, it's time to take these off. And he reveals under his pope outfit, he's wearing huge shackles. So he's never been using his full power.
And he was always he was the best mahjong player in the world, so he was mahjong with the fucking shackles on.
Yeah, before this all began, the Japanese Prime Minister went and played a mahjong game against Pope Benedict.
Wait,
and
in the book or in real life?
in the book.
That's just telling us a fucking fun trivia note about real life.
But in the book, as they're playing, the Pope is so good that he's recreating Genesis on the table and saying that God's goal when he made Earth was to make mahjong. And it was one of the most ridiculous things I'd read in a long time.
This is so good.
So that was with the shackles on. Now he's like, I'm going to have to take these off for this match. And then it's like, who's his opponent going to be? Well, it's going to be Hermann Goering and
Deputy
Rudolf Hess.
Führer Rudolf Hess.
Yeah, Rudolf Hess. And again, it's kind of interesting because it's like, I know a lot of these guys could have escaped, but like Goering like committed suicide before he was going to be killed at the Nuremberg trials.
But if he's dead, he
guess-
can't be playing mahjong. So
yeah,
Phil
I guess maybe
Wagner was
he got
still
swapped
alive.
out.
I think you can
So,
drop.
my problem is like the moral quandaries of this. First problem is the historical inaccuracy.
Yeah, how can Goering be alive?
I mean, he
But
can make mahjong and make fucking Genesis on the board, but how the fuck can he be alive?
How's everyone alive and
So-
they look 30 or 40?
I don't know. Anyway,
So one of the things,
Goering
if you don't, just real quick, if you don't remember Pope Benedict's like controversy, he was, as a kid, he was like put in like a Nazi youth program, right?
he was in the Hitler Youth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he shows up to fight Goering and Hess, and it turns out they get electrocuted from the sky, and he's like, a mystery voice says, I don't need you guys. I can do this myself. And this swastika UFO comes down from space.
Oh yeah, but we should mention the Nazis travel through UFOs, literal like fucking like,
Yeah.
flying saucer.
Flying saucer.
Well, they
yeah,
have
yeah.
Nazi insignias on them, so I don't think they're unidentified.
But they call them
Yeah.
UFOs anyway. They're like, oh shit, UFO, like
Yeah.
literally.
NFOs.
And so who steps out of the UFO? Of course, it's Hitler. And he's, like Sly was saying, very like shown in like a very dramatic, glorious fashion.
No, not only that,
And-
the announcers were like, he's beautiful, he's warm and gentle, he's the greatest sorcerer of the 20th century.
And he's just saying, "Mein Führer," and he starts running to
The
hug him.
Pope,
to
yeah.
Like the even the enemies, start like the people who are against the Nazis. When they see him, they get entranced by him. So apparently, he has some kind of like sorcery.
Yeah,
that
the
can-
Pope's assistant is entranced by him and runs to him, and the Pope clubs him in the back of the head and kills him.
I thought that was cool too, though, because it's like this again. I know the magic social problems, whatever. But like the idea that like Hitler was such a great speaker because he had sorcery. Like he used magic to entrance people to his side.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Nazis just like it's so good to send the message that Nazis are so uniquely good at prevailing people, right, Phil? You fucking
Just like the hate ray.
yeah.
But I love that Hitler shows up, and it's like every fucking like action story where he's like, "Oh, how you've changed."
Yeah.
So you've come so far since the young theology student I used to know.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not
Yeah, so
Ratzinger, I'm Pope Benedict.
Yeah, that was great too, because he's like he recognized him right away. It's like Ratzinger, and he's like, now I'm the 200th Pope or whatever of the Roman Catholic Church, and so they start battling, and a lot of the imagery in the fight is like the Pope is using God attacks, obviously,
Like Jesus
holy
shows up
attack.
literally like in the cross and stuff.
Yeah.
and Hitler to appease Sly is shown as the devil a lot throughout this.
And also, and he has like see the future powers. And he says all your tactics are stupid. Like one person like does math, one person does magic. It's all stupid because I can see the future. Fuck
Yeah,
you.
this is
Yeah,
crazy.
I thought that was
he's not
interesting.
even like having to play anything. All of his pieces are just like in the correct order.
It's like
Pegasus from
or-
Yu-Gi-Oh! Like literally, like
Yeah.
the villain always has an unfair advantage that the hero must overcome.
And he's like, you're talking about reads? This is not about reading. Like, I know what happens. And he uses Blitzkrieg against him. And he's like,
and the Pope keeps tanking hits, and Hitler like isn't taking any damage at all.
Yeah.
I think they call it Ragnarok, the Mahjong of the gods.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's happening, and then we get a flashback after you see this splash page of Hitler's eyes going crazy as he can see time. Then we get a flashback to when Benedict is a young kid in Nazi Germany, and he's working with this other bishop to bring this burned patient out of Germany. And the soldiers stop them, and they're like, "No, we're doing this to help this guy."
He said he was burned by Nazis, and he's head to toe bandaged.
Yeah, and the bishop says this isn't actually, this is whatever, and they reveal that this is actually Adolf Hitler being smuggled out. But Ratzinger didn't know this, so he tries to stop them. But Hitler, this like giant boat comes out of the water or something.
It's a U-sub.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or
the
U-boat.
U-boat takes him away, and he's like, ever since that day when he was like 18 or whatever, as a young part of the church, he's been chasing Hitler to stop him.
But then
Because
he
he
reveals,
accidentally let Hitler out of Germany that he had him survive.
But then he reveals, I didn't come here to kill you. I came here to save you.
Which I thought was also a great twist. He's like, God's love is infinite. Like, anyone can be forgiven.
And I think Hitler at one point is like, not a single particle of my being can be
Yeah.
saved.
Yeah. He says, I can't be saved. And then this gets into like Fate Stay Night territory where they start bringing each other to like these reality marbles. Like,
It becomes a mental battle. They say like this is no longer a battle of mahjong. It's a spiritual battle.
They call it
Of
the
the
Twilight
god.
of the Gods this time.
So Hitler brings the Pope into the Judean desert where Jesus was tempted, and he's running around trying to find the tiles he needs, and he's like, I have them right here for you, tempting him the same way
And
Jesus was.
the Pope is really tiny, so he's like carrying the tiles like Jesus carried the cross.
Yeah,
And Hitler's
I love it.
like, I'll give you the tiles. It's like like the devil telling Jesus.
Yeah,
I'll get
it's so
you
good,
something.
and he even quotes. This must be some mahjong thing, but he says, "Man shall not live by pawn alone."
Pawn is like when they say whatever they like have a winning round or something like that. I think.
Yeah, it's a specific set of tiles. It's like 3 of a kind, I think.
And the Pope says, I only bow to God.
Yeah, so he refuses to be tempted, and then they go to this next realm.
They go to Eden.
They go to Eden, right? The Pope brings him to Eden, and he's like, "Look at how beautiful Eden is." But this isn't where you're going, and he turns around, and there's the gates of hell, and he's like, "This is where you're going."
And my favorite is that it's the Rodin statue of the Gates of Hell, where they have the thinker at the top of it, and in his hand is a mahjong tile as he's looking at it.
I missed that.
There's so much great like little details like that, and as we go back to the real world, we see Hitler and Ratzinger or Benedict both look like really ragged, like they look like they're dying.
Yeah.
Because the mental battle's killing them; they're bleeding out of their noses. And as even like as the Pope's getting hit, he's like, Jesus said, when someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn him the other, and he gets hit with another move. And then it looks like the Pope's about to win. He uses what is it, the word or something?
Yep, Logos.
Like, yeah. And Hitler seems defeated, but then it turns out that wasn't his final form.
This is
And he
so
says,
good.
finally, like a real challenge. Someone can hurt me.
It becomes what does it become?
Super Aryan. And it's like he stands up, his hair is blonde and standing up like Goku's. And he literally is just like Super Saiyan Hitler.
I love that he turns into a Super Saiyan with the big blonde hair, but they're like, see, he's extra Aryan now because he's blonde.
Yeah. And he's like, now that I've reached this stage, like, sorry, Benedict, I have to do this to you.
He becomes like super kind of like theatrical and flamboyant because he's like, "Oh, I'm really sorry."
It's like a lot of anime
It's
villains.
Pegasus.
Like
It's like,
Kuja.
oh, Yugi boy.
Yep. I'm a
Yeah,
really
yeah.
bad dictator, huh? Oop, Ron. And then he zaps the Pope.
It's a lot of anime characters like this. Like, they're just really flamboyant as they kill the protagonists.
Yeah.
And so the Hitler.
The Hitler.
You get chosen to be the Pope or the Hitler.
As the Pope is getting defeated, he's like, I have the last for my last word. I can I can give the people after me like the way to defeat Hitler. And this mahjong move is visible from space, like it's like the light is like Dragon Ball Z style beam into the sky, and the Pope disintegrates.
He
And-
sacrifices himself for everyone else's sins.
And yeah, and like around the world, this like all the scientists are like, what just happened? And this observatory sees the hand of God, which is maybe some way to defeat Hitler.
You forgot that all that's left in his chair after the move is just his cap.
Oh yeah, and someone on Earth, I forget who this is, the Prime Minister of Japan. He reaches down and his cross is shattered, and he's like, "This is a bad omen."
Oh yeah, we should mention that the Prime Minister of Japan is the main character of the series. And he barely does anything in this entire story arc.
I didn't know he was.
Yeah, because he's watching all the giants duke it out.
And also, after he sacrificed himself, like, Earth, he becomes one with the Earth, and, like, these beautiful gardens grow around Hitler. And Hitler, like, breaks down in tears, and he's like, he finally got what he always wanted.
And then all of a sudden, a shot hits from the moon. The moon cannon shot the UFO. What? And it turns out that Field Marshal Rommel, you guys probably know him from the North African campaign in... He's kind of like the...
Of course, everyone knows the North African campaign of Nazi...
He's famous. He's like...
I know Ronald, but I don't think everyone...
All
knows
these
Ronald.
guys are famous.
He's like the Robert E. Lee of the Nazis, where everyone likes to romanticize him as like, you know, he was duty bound to fight for his country, but really, like, you know, he was a good guy.
Is it true that he was more popular than Hitler?
He was very popular, especially. It's hard to measure that because they weren't doing polls like how popular was Hitler, but it's like he was extremely popular, and I think he gets away from a lot of the traditional Nazi blame because he didn't fight in Europe, so it wasn't like he was ever responsible for rounding up Jews or anything. But also great, his unit in Africa was called the Desert Foxes, and it turns out that the Lunar Foxes, led by Rommel, have staged an uprising on the moon to overthrow Hitler. And Hitler's like, I have to go deal with this. I'll fight you later. And he goes back to the moon to fight Rommel's Lunar Foxes.
That's where our
great.
story ends for now.
Yeah, so they do a typical anime shit where they delay the final battle between Hitler and the main character until like way down the line, so people can keep reading and keep buying their shit.
This book is awesome.
I didn't want to read this whole thing when you said how many issues it was, and then once I started, I could not stop.
I'll be honest, I was not really excited for this, and I'm not gonna go as far as you guys, as Phil saying this is the best thing I've ever read.
I was mostly exaggerating.
I'm sure, but I will say it kept slowly winning me over. Like I think Kaijo is a bit like the jokes landed more consistently for me. But this one's, I think now, as I'm talking about it now, I think I like it more. I think because
I like this more than Kaijo.
Because you start pointing out more of the subtle references I missed. I didn't catch.
I like Kaijo more. I think.
Keijo, guys.
I think.
It's Keijo.
Yeah, sorry. A big reason for that is that I don't understand Mahjong, so everything is just revolving around this game that I don't understand.
Yeah.
Oh, and you're an expert on hit each other with our butts and boobs until someone
That's
dies.
you can understand that though, like drill boobs. You're like, okay, a boob spins real fast and becomes a drill.
No, it's true though, because when they're like, "I'm doing Hitatsu Kai Boo,"
Yeah, and when they're
like, I don't know
arguing
what that
about
move-
like what is this person trying to go for, like what one of two moves, it's like I don't know either of the moves.
Yeah, I guess.
I bet if you really liked Mahjong, this would be extra.
Yeah. That's probably why I will ultimately pick Kaijo over this, even though this thing. This fucking thing. This book slowly won me over. Because Kaijo is more universally, like, if you know anime, you like this. I think that, it does a decent job of making Mahjong theatrical, but I think it would have been serviced by making, like, a more abstract game or something like that, like something more theatrical.
It's also weird because it makes, like, politics theatrical. Like, it teaches you about the Third Reich and stuff.
But I think that stuff is cool, and I think the fact that you're taking something so dumb, not that Mahjong is a bad game, but taking something so...
Mahjong is a shit game.
I should say mundane. Mm-hmm. So you take something mundane and turn it into a very epic thing. I think there's something great about that in itself.
Do you think the publisher came to the writer and said, "We need a Mahjong book," and the writer's like, "What the fuck do I do?" and came out with this, or was it the other way around? Where he's like, "I love politics."
I think this guy likes politics and Mahjong, and it's like, I need to combine these.
So it's
and
Phil.
he likes shonen.
I don't like Mahjong.
Sure, I'm gonna come to your house next time, and we're gonna play. I'm gonna see catching Mahjong and writing this fucking book.
I'm gonna watch this show if it.
So,
it was only 3 episodes.
The real question, though, the question we must answer every 2 weeks: would you read more of this, Sly?
Yes.
Yeah, I think ultimately I would. Yeah.
Phil?
Yes.
Darryl?
I don't know. I feel like I got all my Mahjong fulfillment from just reading this.
You're allowed to say no.
No, but it's not like a hard no. Like, it's like, I guess I would, but like, I'm not gonna read the rest of this on my own.
Gotcha.
I actually want to. I want to do 2 things actually. This is how much the book won me over. I want to learn Mahjong, and I want to see the Hitler fight between the Japanese president now.
Maybe I'll learn Mahjong. Maybe we'll play Mahjong together, and then we'll become like these guys.
We'll start a third podcast all about Mahjong. Oops, I played Mahjong again.
And we'll find a way to we'll do like this: Appearing Express, fucking Hand of God.
There is 4 of us.
Yeah.
Cool.
That'll be our first stream when we're playing a game. We'll play Mahjong.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much to David for suggesting this. This book is awesome.
Yeah.
And if anybody else has any suggestions, you should let us know in our Facebook group. Oops, I Talk Divisive Issues. And while you're at it, you should tell a friend and add them to the group, and also rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. And while you're at all those things, you should also go to comraderadio.com. We did finally release the second volume of the playlist. It is on Comrade Radio. And
if you want to see the first playlist about food in history.
It's very weird.
As one would expect when we're forced to choose between food or drink for a song.
But it's a lot of fun.
To be fair, but we could have gone with like generic, like let's get drunk and shit like that, but we all chose the weirdest shit possible. Songs about cannibalism, anorexia.
Yeah, bulimia sly.
Oh, sorry.
But they're very fun.
Asshole.
And yeah, you should check that out and all the other shows at comradradio.com. So thank you guys so much for listening to Divisive Issues. I've been Baby Bush, no, the one true Papa Bush.
I've been Richard Wagner.
I've been super cool enough to make others hate me.
And I've been Super Aryan Hitler.
Stay in continuity.